Welcome to our series on Meet the Experts, Get the Insights, where commercial meets technology in the hotel world. Each of these episodes will feature passionate founders of great technology solutions that have a significant impact on your hotel's commercial success. I'm Vineeth, the founder of HotelLadder.com, a dedicated learning as a service platform that hoteliers can subscribe to. The platform offers micro-learning courses on all areas commercial to help hotel teams drive more revenue online and optimize profitability. Now, on to our guest today. Welcome. Today, I'm delighted to have Callum McPherson talk to us. Callum is the founder and CEO of Obvlo, a company that creates personalized destination content at scale using AI. Announced as one of FocusWire's top 25 startups this year, Obvlo is used by global hotel and travel brands to deliver hyper-local recommendations that inspire and delight customers. We will dive into what took Callum on this journey in creating personalized content for hotels, how it works, and what this means for you as hoteliers seeking to enhance your direct bookings through your brand website. Callum, welcome. And if I may ask, please give us a quickest of rundowns about you and Obvlo, and then we'll get into the detail, of course.
Yeah, Vineeth, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the session. Yeah, looking forward to having a good chat about the proposition and the market and what the future holds. Yeah, I'm Callum. I'm the founder, the CEO of Obvlo. At its heart, really, we're a content company. We're an AI company, and our focus is working with hotels to help them create really engaging and personalized online experiences at different stages of their guest journey for different objectives, which I'm sure we'll get onto. My background is a whole combination of things, classic kind of entrepreneurial journey.
Mm-hmm.
I did work in hotels. When I was starting off in my career, I worked night shifts from PM to 9 a.m.
Oh,
So I
wow.
kind of cut
Could you
my
say
teeth that
that
way.
could you say that inspired you to work with hotels?
I think in some ways, I definitely enjoy hospitality and travel. I've done some interesting travel, and hotels for me was one way of funding
Okay.
that as well when I was younger. See some interesting things in a hotel at that time of night.
Yeah.
But then I ended up in technology, and I worked in financial technology originally, and
Okay.
I worked for an interesting business that used people's bank data to verify their identity for credit risk underwriting and identity verification and that kind of thing. And really just learned the power of data. We understood everything about a person, where they were spending their money, how many kids they had, what kind of rent they paid, and so on. So, I kind of do see a bit of full circle where I've come back to the world of hotels, but applying what I've learned in data and technology and seeing how we can help hotels with that.
Okay. No, brilliant. So you have a very strong technology background, and so what drove that sort of part to destination content? And obviously, hotels traditionally have not been very good at destination content. I mean, like even the larger companies and chains, very few have that dynamic, or or the number of hotels increases, and therefore, the quality of content just sort of suffers as a result as going. So where did
Yeah.
that sort of trigger for you then actually say, this is an area that could be helped by tech, or how did that start?
Yeah, definitely true. I think most companies do this badly, and that's not because they're not putting the effort in. It's because it's really hard to do. And I think that our proposition in helping with this, with content in particular, it's harder to do the more of it you need, the more scale
Yeah.
you have. So the larger the company is, the harder, the bigger the problem is to solve.
Yeah.
I was, met with the head of experiences for one of the big chains in a hotel when I was at a conference in Miami, and I
Mhm.
showed her that their app recommended Subway as a breakfast option because it was just pulling in data from Google Maps,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
actually I think Foursquare, and it was not being verified by anything, and the image was of one of the staff in the kitchen, a selfie, and that was the image they were showing their guests. And I sort of
Right.
pointed out that, of course this is bad. How could this be good? There's no
But this
great
is
solution.
before or after? What's sort of like, from a trigger point of view about what triggered you to chase this path? Was that
That was
happened?
no, that was pretty early on. I think
Okay.
from our perspective, it's the way I look at this is going even beyond hotels or going even beyond travel. I think we have a general vision for the internet being more personalized.
Yeah.
So every online experience can be more personalized.
Hmm.
retail is quite good at this because they know it sells products. So Amazon is quite good at showing you things you might want because they
Yep.
know it converts better. And in travel, that obviously that's the direction we're headed. The more personalized you're offering, the more likely you are to convert. So our view with travel and hotels in particular around content is the only way to deliver personalization is to have lots of options. And the internet is just content. Your hotel website is just content, whether that is images of the hotel, descriptions of the rooms or the local area or anything else. That's content. So how do you display the most relevant things to the person looking at your
Right.
website? You need lots of things to show. And I think we've always looked at things like Spotify and thought Spotify is a brilliant product because
Mm,
there's so much content, there's so many songs. The chances of it giving you a song you like are really high. So
right.
if you have a website without a lot of content on it, the chances of giving someone something relevant is really small.
Yep.
So we looked at this and thought that not necessarily the easiest way, the only way probably to scale the content is to look at why are people coming to this destination, and that is ultimately the area, the neighborhood, the location, the destination. And so scaling that kind of content
Mhm.
means you're more likely to be able to target the individual and
And
give them the
that's
right
what
the right thing.
drove you then to, and then you looked at the hotels and you saw, well, it's a dump of information, and then you said, okay, well, there is some opportunity here to use your technology background, AI, etc., to bring something scalable. Is that how that went
Yeah,
to Oblo?
or possibly the other way around. We
Okay.
looked at who out there, what kind of companies are providing local recommendations
Okay.
and why and at what stage. Obviously, you have destination marketing organizations
Right.
doing this. You have airlines, travel agents, and so on. But hotels have a number of reasons to do it. They have a pre-arrival inspiration reason
Hmm.
to do it, and they have an
Yeah.
in-stay operational concierge reason to do it. And that's where we started.
So there was no bridge in a way, like, so in the traditional classic hotel world, you'd ask the concierge or you'd ask the reception for suggestions, and they would sometimes give you a good answer and sometimes, guide you the wrong way. So did that sort of also then combine to say, okay, you want to, obviously the human element comes into play, but you'd also want the technology to give you the options.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, also as a startup, as a new business, we weren't going to go and embed our product in, Hilton's app. We knew we had to start somewhere.
Right.
So starting off with individual properties and offering a digital concierge solution was
Okay.
a fast route to market. So that's where we started.
And what is with the name Oblo? Where did that come from?
It's hard to name a business. That's the honest answer. We had a whiteboard full of ideas and looking up different trademarks and what's
Right.
already taken. And we wanted a short word.
Hmm.
We wanted a .com as well, and it's an amalgamation of obviously local.
Okay. Okay.
So
That does make sense. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, one of the things we do, and I say we started with the use case and then applied the technology. We started with the use case, which was okay. Hotels are giving personalized or trying to give personalized recommendations. How can we help with that? And then we developed the solution, and local was a big aspect to that. So we have at the beginning we had there was a lot of human effort, and we've automated using AI. We've automated a lot of the process,
Okay.
which is a big part of our proposition now. But
Yeah.
making sure that we focus on local businesses and local recommendations and not chains is a big part of that as well. It's optional and it can be turned off. And in certain markets, particularly in America, chains are pretty dominant. But
Okay.
a lot of European cities, and in particular, you can focus on, we're going to recommend coffee. We can find a local coffee shop
Yeah.
rather than a chain. And so local is a huge aspect of the proposition.
What are some of the big learnings? I mean, I think you shared one or two of those, but what have been the key learnings as you built Oblo to where it is now? And we'll go into where you are now. But what were some of the learnings so far that you'd be share you can share?
Yeah, I mean, so many things, and we are, we're learning every day. I could tell you things I've learned today, probably. But from a market perspective, for us, it's the fundamental for us, and for really any kind of new business is understanding the customer as well as possible and
Yeah.
focusing. So I've had meetings with airlines, OTAs, DMOs, and other segments, but we're really
Mhm.
focused on hotels and we're
Right.
building our product for hotels.
Yeah.
make sure that we can deliver the best possible service for that use case, which is different. So focusing on the hotel use case, and then even within that, like I say, there's different requirements at different stages,
Hmm.
and we're again trying not to focus at every single stage. So we started really with this on property service. Most of our buyers were general managers of hotels, and they were
Right.
buying our solution as what they might describe back as a digital concierge, but really an operational
Okay.
solution. So hard for them and their staff, particularly if they're non-local staff or transient staff, to have any high degree of local knowledge, and expensive to hire a concierge, expensive to
And
staff, even
consistency
if
as well, I guess,
yeah,
to a degree, right?
yeah. Well, there's a 5-star hotel in London, and the GM told me that they have 4 concierge, but they're all different ages. The youngest
Yeah.
is something like 22, and the oldest to be 60 or so. And
Yeah.
they
So
they
if somebody says, okay, what's a fun place to
yeah,
go out to, the recommendations would be completely different.
differ depending on who's on shift. So, technology is a great way of solving that kind of problem because it doesn't really make those judgments. With technology, you can create a profile on someone based purely on their interests, their reason for travel, what's the weather doing today, all those kind of things, and give answers. So I
And
think
that's an important part of your product, right? So the human knowledge meets AI driven automation and efficiency, right? So can you tell us a little bit about how your product does that? Because from what I've understood, it's asks you for choices, but then you can also feed in with the knowledge base that the hotel personnel have, for example, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we have two products really. We have our content engine, which is the back end. That's how information is created. And
Mhm.
that's that sort of local knowledge piece. And then we have front ends, which would be the other product, which is how to get that in front of the guest in a
Okay.
hotel example. And that could be embedding the content onto the website of the hotel or into the app, or it could be a completely standalone solution like a digital concierge. But on the back end
Mhm.
content engine piece, this is a solution that allows our customer or us on behalf of our customer, depends on
The
the level
customer
of
as in the
involvement.
hotel in this instance.
Yeah, yeah. So if there's a marketing team for a hotel wants to deliver personalized content through their website, they can either access our systems directly, or we can do it for them. Really,
Mhm.
it depends on the level of involvement they want.
I,
But
I
that
think,
system, yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
that system allows them to configure two key things really. One is location. So a location is sounds like a simple concept, but actually it's the location, the hotel, the neighborhood, the city, the country. It could be any of those things, but
Right.
let's assume it's the neighborhood. You configure that, and you configure what we call a template, which could be coffee shops or date night
Mhm.
locations or things to do with children. You could have 100 of these templates, and then you could run them for any location that you need that content for. And then our system essentially, works as a series of different AI agents who execute specific tasks. So
Right.
the first task in that process is automatically reading articles, blogs, whatever information is out there on the
Mhm.
web to identify, okay, what are the best coffee shops in this area, and then generate new information on those coffee shops, write descriptions of them, access and analyze photos to display the best photos, find the opening hours, find the directions and all that kind of key information, and
And
then group it
if
all
it's
together.
missing one of the, let's say in the experience of the hotel team, one coffee shop that they know of is missing for whatever reason, and this they can then go in and add that information, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
once the content engine has kind of produced the initial guide, that can then be edited. So the description of a single place can be edited,
Okay.
and places can be added and removed, and so on. Even the tone of voice can be applied so that if we're working with a specific brand, we work with Virgin Hotels who have
Hmm.
really really solid, well defined brand guidelines.
Right.
We can make sure that we're staying on brand here, and that every customer of ours has unique content. They're not reusing anything.
And I think that is where I feel, that the power of the solution is in that blending of human knowledge, human experience with that of speed and efficiency and the
Yeah,
ability to dig out information really, really quickly. So yeah, no, 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 that sounds really, really interesting. And you referred to some of the technology sort of side of it, as in when it comes to the hotel itself. So not so much your product, but how then it works with hotel technology, because that's always usually one of the lovely pain points that we have in our business. So how does that work? So with what kind of technology partners We can look at it from a hotel point of view in a minute, but if we just sort of said, which tech partners do you work with as partners?
Yeah, I think from a kind of non-industry or non, hotel specific side, we use a lot of different solutions, particularly AI models
Okay.
and sort of cloud infrastructure to build our product. So we have, describe it as a modular architecture where because our system is a series of different steps or
Hmm.
agents, the a different model might be used for different steps. So analyzing images might be one thing,
Yeah.
generating text-based descriptions might be another, generating images might be another. And we built our system in a modular way where if a new model comes out that's better for a specific task, we can
You can
start using
flip it
that straight
around.
away. We don't have to rebuild anything. So that gives us a huge amount of sort of speed and efficiency on our end. In terms of then what is the customer, the hotel customer of ours have to implement or integrate, that depends really on how they want to distribute the content. So we have a fully hosted web app solution that requires zero integrations, and we can have that up and running for a customer in the same day. And that'll usually be distributed through QR codes and links being added into their existing pre-arrival email communication. So nothing needs integrated, and that solution is used by a lot of our chain customers, so Hilton's and IHG's and Marriott's, because they don't have any ability really to
Get into
they
their
don't have their own
systems.
websites or vanity sites or anything. So that's why we created that product. And again, part of it from our side was a route to market, a way to get a product out there without having to do complicated integrations. And then over the last year, we've created these embeddable solutions, which is 2 lines of code you can copy and paste and drop onto a web page and
Okay.
display that content as part of your website. Everything loads on your website by just having 2 lines of code installed. So
Okay.
everything's configured on our end.
So effectively, whatever integration there is, I mean, there is no touching the property management system. There is no touching the central reservation system.
Well, this is what I said earlier on that different content's relevant at different stages. So we have integrated now with Oracle and more recently Muse as well.
Okay.
And part of the reason for that is to send pre-arrival communications
Got it.
that are tailored to
Okay.
the individual. So the first Muse customer pilot just started this week, in fact.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, and that's sending someone personalized advice before they arrive, either 3 days before, a week before, a day before, for restaurants, experiences, places to go, things to do, based on their profile, the data that Muse already has on the individual without having to capture new
Okay.
data.
So the customer is not asking at that stage. They have basic levels of information or potentially historical information, and then it would send customized recommendations based on that. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, and that's one use case that is based on an integration. So it really is it can go from zero integration web app all the way down to integrating with the PMS and sending the recommendations directly to the guest. I do
Okay.
think the amount of pre-arrival emails that you can sometimes get from hotels
Yeah.
that you don't really want to read or maybe you don't open versus getting one that has personalized recommendations that make your trip better. It's a really nice piece of communication. It
It's
has
an
a very
interesting,
clear
really
impact.
interesting area as well, because I think, we've all been wanting to get, more personal about the messaging and so on, but, without being creepy about it,
Yeah,
and really how do you do that and with less manual inputs in the
yeah,
process, I guess.
yeah. And
Okay.
then we have an API as well. So we have customers, not so much hotel customers, but we have some other use cases where more sort of travel planning, where you might have a chatbot or an AI trip planner, and you want to deliver really rich, visually engaging content as responses to questions, and you can pull
Right.
that information out of our system using an API. So yeah, I think that it's all about options there, really.
Okay.
Going from no integration to like a really deep API integration.
And the API integration, is that currently up and running? And is there an example of how that is doing something for a partner client?
That's not up and running yet.
Okay.
And the reason for that is even the biggest sort of hotel groups we work with, probably around 50 hotels,
Yeah.
and they might think they want to use the API. And then when they see our embeddable solutions, they think actually we can use that because
Yeah.
the embeddable solution we have is modular as well. So you can have a map, you can have, this layout or that layout. the look, the colors, the fonts, everything is customizable, and
Yeah.
it will save you having to build an interface. So you don't
Yeah,
have
and
to
then
design or
API
develop
requires
anything.
maintenance on both sides. I mean,
Yeah.
so
So the API is really, use case more with technology companies where there's a requirement to have a specific interface or
a
their own
lot more
interface.
customization as well, I guess.
Yeah. So those are the kind of, I mean, we've been, like I say, focused on the hotel market. This is
Yep.
the market that we're focused on. But yeah, some of the sort of enterprise use cases out there, which are really OTAs and meta search
Hmm.
companies,
Okay.
because
No,
they're not properties. They're obviously technology companies.
yeah.
That's where the API probably ends up becoming a separate kind of product.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, I think that's quite clear. So now I want us to go into the shoes of the hotelier and, some of the responses you've had as you've, gone into the space. The hotel typically is quite busy. They are saying, okay, the usual questions that come up, how important can this be? What do you say to somebody who says, okay, destination content is important, but is it really going to drive me much business? What's return on investment?
Yeah.
A bunch of related questions, really. But if you want to just start with what are the typical sort of questions that you get from a hotel?
Yeah, no, it's those are all the spot on the kind of things that we are in conversation with whenever we speak to a new hotel, either at the hotel level or really the sort of group level. I think this is where back to that idea that different things are relevant at different stages of the guest journey. It might depend: are we speaking to marketing and are we focused on the sort of top
Yeah.
of funnel inspiration use case, or the on property kind of more practical use case? And
Hmm.
these are two different things. So if we speak to the sort of general manager of a hotel, it's all about making their life easier. Like
Hmm.
you say, they are busy. They don't have time to try things out necessarily. Because they think it's a nice to have, or it's a cool thing. So it's
Yeah.
got to be about what practically is this doing for you. I've got a good example because I was in Prague about 2 weeks ago, and I stayed at the Emblem Hotel, which is one of our customers,
Good.
also a Muse customer. And we have a great testimonial. It's public. It's on our website from the general manager of this hotel, who said they were trying to, because they're a 5-star hotel, they were trying to give recommendations to everyone before they arrived. They were trying to learn
Right.
about the guest and send them local advice. It's an amazing city, and everyone that comes there wants to explore the
Yeah, they have
city.
loads of questions about what to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I can
and
imagine.
what's relevant to you?
Yeah,
Prague's a big beer kind of place, but do you like wine? Do you like
yeah.
natural wine? There's a couple of great spots that you would want to go to, but you have to find them.
Mm.
So yeah, the testimonial we got from this hotel was really they tried to do that, but because it's so hard to do that at any kind of scale, if you're going to really try and give personalized advice to everyone, it's going to take too much time. You'll end up shortcutting it, and you'll end up giving them kind of more generic advice, which kind of defeats the point.
Yeah.
Should you actually be giving them any advice then? If
Mhm.
it ends up like that, you're sort of
Yeah.
removing the thing you wanted to do. So yeah, that's what it's always about. There's a group, I guess I would name names, but like reasonably well known group we work with. Started off with one property, now it's in I think 8 or 9,
Okay.
and in an Excel spreadsheet that their staff referred to for
Yeah.
local advice. So different
Yeah.
tabs for different kind of travelers, and that lived on the laptop at the reception. So I think wherever there's Excel being used, there's probably a business opportunity to build an application, because people turn to Excel really when they're trying to solve these kind of problems. So
Yeah.
that's the sort of operational property level, and that's usually what it comes down to
Okay.
in terms of like the ROI and the use case. What's interesting though is how that does change through the journey. So more recently, we've been doing more deals with marketing teams, group wide deals, and it's all what we're hearing more and more interest over the last year, but probably even the last 6 months. People talking about inspiration and
Right.
top of funnel, and actually, I can't remember. I think it was Pride of Britain did a survey of 2,000 travelers, and the number one factor influencing a decision for a hotel was the local area.
Yeah, I'm
What's
not I'm
around the
not
hotel.
surprised because we've all experienced these
Yeah,
travels in different ways, and you always want to, even if you're there for a work trip, you still want to, get one evening that is nice and
yeah.
authentic in a new destination, right?
Yeah, and all else being equal, the price and the offering of the hotel, or the sort of rating of the hotel you'll pick one based on the neighborhood, right? What's around. So hotels want to maximize the exposure that they can give people to sell the destination, and they are usually already doing that. So that's the other point I would make is, and it's a learning for us as well, is when you create, because we're creating something new here, we don't really have competitors in this space. There's a lot of guest apps and there's a lot of chat bots and there's the functional things, but we have absolutely focused on the content. So we
Yeah.
haven't added functionality into our product for room service or messaging or anything else. We just focused on doing one thing really, really well,
Yeah.
and understanding that this isn't a new thing. Even though our way of doing it is new, they are
Exactly.
doing it in a manual way already. So pretty much every hotel website will have maps with pins about nearby restaurants or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. They'll have blogs, guides, and then in the hotel they'll probably have a compendium with local recommendations and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Absolutely. What
yeah,
does so it's in terms of the return on investment conversations that sort of come out? I'm sure there's always that, right? So are you sort of showcasing the inspiration side and therefore, top of funnel, but as much as operational side as well? I mean, so if you do you blend the marketing piece with the operations piece, and sort of then you combine it and say, actually, the ROI is a bit more than maybe you think.
yeah, it's funny because it sounds a bit harsh, but you know, almost a party trick or a sales tactic for us is to, if we're speaking to a new group, we'll go on their website beforehand, obviously, and we'll find
Yeah.
all the problems. And 9 times out of 10, if they do have local information, they will be recommending restaurants that haven't existed for 6 months,
Yeah.
or they'll have links to the booking engine, which they've moved from Open Table to Resi, and so the link doesn't work, or all these issues. And so when I say it sounds harsh, it's our starting point is not getting you to 100, it's getting you to zero, right?
Yeah.
If you have these issues, you are giving a negative experience, you're making
Yeah.
it worse. Can we, our system, the content in our overall database, about 5 to 10% of it is updated every single day, and that's things like making sure we verify the opening hours of everything that we have in our system. We add new places and we remove places as they sort of close out, because
Yeah.
cities destinations change all the time. So I would say that our starting point is getting you to that sort of base level where you ideally should be anyway, which is just the information is accurate.
Yeah.
And that already is a business case, because if you, as a head
Okay.
of marketing, if your CEO comes to you and says, look, we've got all these links on our website that don't work, well, there's negative SEO impact there, but there's just negative experience there as well.
Yeah.
So probably, if you've spent a few $100,000 on a website, that's letting you down. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's easy enough to build a case on that, and then from there, can we make this? Our stats, our content has about 4 times higher engagement than static blog content that's there before.
And there's evidence for that, right? So I mean, it's trackable, that type of.
Everything's measurable, and we're now, this takes a little bit of time in the market, but measuring the what is the behavioral difference of people that engage with the content we display there versus people who don't engage with that content. So do they
Yeah.
book at a higher rate? Do they return at a higher rate? Do they book for longer? We have a
Hmm.
group of country hotels in the UK using us to increase the average length of stay,
Okay.
because they know that their average length of stay is one night. And if they showcase things people can do, they
Hmm.
can try and get that up to 1.3 nights or whatever it might be.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, the length of stay piece is really, is a neglected sort of part of hotel yielding and revenue management overall. But despite all this, I mean, to me, it's, I'm convinced, but are there roadblocks that hotels say, oh, because of this, we can't do that? Have you come across anything, or most people are sort of like, actually, I get it. I really want to do this. What's the
I think
general?
so. Within our ICP, our ideal customer profile, which is these sort of medium-sized hotel groups, we have negative churn, so our revenue is higher now than it was when these customers started working with us,
Okay.
and that is because either they've rolled us out into more hotels, or they've opened more hotels and they've put our
Yeah. Okay.
solution.
That's great.
So our revenue grows, considerably within existing customers, and so they say that for any product, really, the best sign of market fit is customer retention.
Yeah.
So if you have customer churn, you probably, there's not enough demand for your product. If you have retention, it's good. You're having the customers actually grow and be worth more over time is obviously, phenomenal signal. That's again back to, one of the sort of learning points that we covered earlier. It's that focus thing of, focusing on those kind of customers, because we know that our product is working well for them
Yeah.
and we're making our product better and better for them the more we learn. And not just the type of hotel group, but the type of buyer. And, like I say, that's increasingly becoming marketing teams, and it's becoming the sort of marketing director or CMO who's the ultimate decision maker there.
Okay. And what if a larger hotel group was listening to this conversation or watching this conversation? Is that something that potentially you'd have in your radar that they would use, or is it always because they have complex internal systems, that's something that you'd pass for the moment and then
Yeah, it's I mean, any large chain that is listening to this will have hotels using our system already,
okay.
franchises or even managed properties, and across, whether it's Marriott or IHG, across multiple brands, within IHG with, Kimptons or Holiday Inns
But that's
using
at
the
the hotel
service
level that they've made the choice to implement this. Okay.
at the hotel level.
Yeah.
Whereas, with Marriott, we have a couple instances of new hotels, which are obviously super high end hotels, and we have some of their more budget properties using it as well. Which again is interesting, because you would think that the use case would be more at, one end of the market, but we find, everyone traveling has some need for, local information. So there's a use case across the board. I would
Okay.
say so that's, evidence of some pool within the market for these chains. The complex thing is obviously, which is totally understandable, cybersecurity.
Mhm.
Big chains don't want to, or if they can avoid any third party code, they will. So embedding solutions like ours within their digital journey is going
Right.
to require a lot of,
That's
getting comfortable with it, which again, like I say, fair enough, that makes sense, and that should be the case. That's such a priority. So yeah, that's obviously, that obviously makes it harder for us to get penetration within those bigger groups. But that will change over time if
But
these groups
again,
want
I
to
mean,
adopt
as you say,
solutions.
you have hotels that are using it effectively, successfully. So obviously there is, that momentum comes, it's more ground up rather than top down,
Yeah,
isn't it? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for us, it's, that's why we have fully hosted solutions that require zero integration,
yeah,
particularly for chain customers who can't install anything on their on their website.
yeah,
Unless they have a vanity site. So we have some Marriott customers who have
sure.
vanity sites who have it installed there. But
Yeah,
yeah, overall, and then, the other thing is AI. There's still a huge reluctance from the big chains and big companies of any industry to adopt AI and to publicly talk about adopting AI. There's still lots of concerns there, and things to be tested. That makes sense. That's what you'd expect, and so that's why I think it is important that you have top down and bottom up conversations.
yeah,
We've spoken to all the big chains at the most senior levels, but that's going to take time, and you got to go both directions. I think also, for us, that's why having these hosted solutions
yeah.
have helped us, because if we'd gone to the market with an API solution and we needed to work with the big groups as our
That
first
would have taken
customers,
you ages to,
yeah,
yeah,
we
get
wouldn't still be
started.
around. Yeah, we the sales cycle would be too long, the
Yeah.
learning curve and everything else. So, you gotta, try and go to the market in both directions.
Yep,
Absolutely, I
no,
think
smart
top
move,
down, bottom up.
definitely. I think because I mean, having seen that from the chain side of things, I mean, I can certainly comment on that. It's not because of wanting to do things, but it's just, yeah, as you say, third-party systems into central systems of large companies. There's a big process around it, and then there are multiple competing factors, and which ones do you prioritize? I think that there's a lot of that as well. But just sort of from a, we talked about a hotel chain looking at it. If a hotel is listening to this and they are hearing this for the first time, what would you tell them, or where would you tell them to go and to get started and sort of find out a bit more, not just about maybe Oblo, but also like where they are? What suggestions
Yeah.
would you have for a hotelier?
I would definitely say start by looking at what you're doing today. Have a look at because the word content means different things to different people. But I
Yeah,
think that the reason for that is because content is everything. This is the point that I often try and make is if you're on the internet, mean, what we're creating right now, talking to each other, is content,
Yeah.
right? So there's where does content sit in your digital journey as a hotel, right the way from the first interaction someone has with a social media post, all the way down to in the room they see a flyer or
Mhm.
a binder or some piece of collateral. I think you've got to look at it and think what is currently less than ideal.
Yeah.
What's the things that we need to fix? I think, like I said earlier, it's getting everything to the base level should be the starting point. You shouldn't
Mhm.
be trying to deliver personalized content if the content you're currently delivering is just inaccurate
Yeah.
and misleading. You should start by making sure that's that's good enough and then improve it. And so yeah, if it's a hotel that has a look at their website and they've got some blogs they've created about the local area or things to do, then make sure that those are the information and those are still accurate because things
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
and
I
that
mean,
should be the starting point.
what you said about content is really actually quite interesting. I mean, how it's defined, what does content mean? I mean, in the distribution world, content includes rates as
Yeah,
well, right? So
yeah,
it's really interesting because we talk about standardizing definitions and and obviously there's a lot of work done on how content is pulled together, whether it's visual content, descriptive content, and so on. It's really interesting to actually do an audit almost of the hotel's content. They may have one repository for images, but the rest of it might be all over the place. And so not only would it benefit them overall, but if you had something like destination content, obviously that is one more thing to have. Yeah, there's lots that can be done on the content front, I think.
absolutely. And then and it's I think probably again a solution like ours is simpler than it seems
Yeah,
because, like I say, you can two lines of code and you can install this on your website, but two lines of code and you can install this on your staging site and see what it looks like, and
yeah,
then start tweaking different aspects of it and the configuration and then show your colleagues and get internal feedback. This doesn't have to be let's get it on our website on several pages and put it live today. There's lots of ways to kind of test these solutions out. So that would be step two, really, is try things, start
yeah,
small.
yeah.
You don't have to go full one.
Okay. No, that is brilliant. So now that's been really interesting, just sort of learning your part to coming up with a solution and how that's changing the world of hotels. So where is this journey going, and what's next for you?
Yeah, good question. The world is moving quickly at the moment. I really don't think that can be overstated. And we're always thinking about what to do, and I think equally what not
Right,
to what not to focus on. Something we think about a lot is what problems that we're trying to solve will not be problems in a year or in
right,
6 months. Language is a good example where
yep,
AI translation is becoming really good. Is it worth investing a lot of time and money in translation?
right,
Probably not. That's one example. So I think for us, we the best move we've ever made has been to focus on being the best in the world at that content, at destination content, doing this better than anyone else, and not looking at the other sort of functional aspects of our product. So when we have a web app being used by a Holiday Inn who might want us to add in, room service ordering or
yeah, yeah,
some online check-in functionality or something. We don't want to go down that route. There's great providers out there for guest apps and these kind of tools. There's some great companies doing that. We want to do our thing better than anyone else and be really, really focused on it. So the other benefit of that is it means, because we're not focusing on functional things, we're focusing on the content is, we can ultimately go beyond the hotel industry. And so
right.
we do have these other kind of conversations going on at the moment, and I think that's the future for us is probably travel, but it's expanding beyond hotels into some other verticals within travel as well.
Yeah, no, that does sound really, really exciting. So I'm just going to close off by saying, I mean, so what is it that excites you the most then? Is that the potential to go into, obviously focus is really clear. And I think, you work really hard not to digress and go in different directions. And that's really been, part of the success. So what excites you the most looking ahead at this point in time? Is it what you just described?
I think, yeah, in general, it's innovation. It's the way that the world is changing, and it's all the opportunities that creates and the excitement. And then, whenever I open an industry report and see the experiences
Yeah.
or personalization or AI is the top things people are talking about. I know that we're
They,
probably playing in
yeah,
the right space.
that's
Chris
brilliant.
Silcock, who's Hilton's head of brand, said that personalized content was the most exciting near-term opportunity. All these things, they kind of show you you're on the right path. And then, for us, customer, focus on the customers. What do the customers want? The customers that are using our product well, giving us good feedback and growing in value. Like, how could we do more for them? What
Okay.
do they need? And
Yeah.
just keep focusing on that.
So, final question: what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I think thinking about the team. We have a fantastic team. Focus on the team, the customers, and our investors, in that order, probably. Just making
Yeah.
sure everyone's happy.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. No, brilliant. Callum, thank you so much. This has been super informative, and I think we covered a whole lot of things within the sort of 40 minutes or so we've been chatting. And thank you so much for sharing in great detail. Really exciting area. And as you said, you are at the sort of meeting point of technology, content experience. I mean, and that is definitely exciting. So I look forward to following your story. So
Thanks
thanks
very
for
much,
joining
Pete.
us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Cheers.